We have been in this pandemic for over a year now, and I think most of us are still trying to figure this thing out. But you've got this. Today, I'm doing a special webinar for you with practical tools for managing work, school, and stress in the pandemic. This is LD Expert Live. Welcome to LD Expert Live, your place for answers and solutions for learning differences, dyslexia, and auditory and attention challenges. I'm Jill Stowell, founder of Stowell Learning Centers and author of At Wit's End, A Parent's Guide to Ending the Struggle, Tears, and Turmoil of Learning Disabilities. To get a free copy, go to parentsatwitsend.com. Before we jump into the webinar, let's say hello to Lauren and all of you who have joined us today.
Hello.
Good morning, Lauren.
Good morning. Hello to everyone watching us live. Let us know that you're here by saying hello in the chat. We love to see all the places where people are viewing from. Today, we'll take questions at the end, but go ahead and post your questions and comments in the chat as we go. Another resource besides today's webinar for you parents is our Mom Squad. That's a private Facebook group that we have. You can find it on our Facebook page or by going to Facebook groups and searching the keyword SLC Mom Squad to request to join. Remember, we'll be taking questions and comments at the end today, so start posting in the chat. We have some people already checking in. Deanna is checking in from West Covina. Hi, welcome, Deanna. Let's jump right into our webinar today with Jill Stowell for some practical tools for managing work, school, and stress in the pandemic.
Thank you, Lauren. I'm going to share my screen with you and we'll check in on your questions and comments in the chat towards the end. When we crossed into 2021, everyone hoped that things would just get magically better, and things are changing. We've got some vaccines, some kids are back to school on site, but nothing is really back to normal. And many of you are still working at home and monitoring your child's online schooling. So today we're going to talk about some practical ways to navigate and thrive in this time. Heartwarming videos and posts encourage us that we'll get through this together. But if you're at home all day trying to manage distance learning with your kids and working, it can feel pretty lonely. It may be helpful to know that what you're feeling is normal, that sense of overwhelm sometimes and the emotional ups and downs. Education has taken a hit this school year, and it's affected most students regardless of age. We may have to adjust our expectations. You may have a child who was doing just fine in school until distance learning started, and now he's really struggling because of the lack of monitoring and structure that the classroom always provided. We want our kids to do their best, but their best might look a little bit different in their current school situation. Our focus may have to be a little bit different. We can't do things exactly the way we have in the past. And even when things go back to normal, normal will have changed. This time in history is an opportunity to reset and make some changes that we might not have noticed, maybe not noticed the need for, but that hopefully will result in our children, our students, ourselves, having more resilience, more independence, better self-care, and stronger thinking skills. Even though there may be some light at the end of the tunnel with this pandemic, we're not there yet. And it's really important that you stay okay so that your family and your students have a chance of staying okay through this. Our kids are always going to be looking to us for social referencing to see if we're all okay. Is life okay? Are we going to get through this time? If you're a mess, your kids will be too. But the same thing goes for being calm and resilient. As parents, especially moms, we tend to put everyone else first. But the only way this works is if you take care of you. It's kind of like putting the oxygen mask on yourself first and then your child. Everything that's happening now is outside of you, outside of your control. It's only occurring inside of you if you allow it. We're adaptable creatures. All we can do is embrace how things are, even if we don't like it, and see how we can adapt and even develop. So take this opportunity to be intentional about building new habits for mental, physical, and spiritual health for yourself and your kids. It's not too late, and it's okay to start with tiny changes, because that's how new habits start. So if you think, oh, I would just like a little bit of quiet time with a cup of coffee before I jump into the day. Oh, but there's no time. Start with just 5 minutes. It's okay to start small. This is really important because mental health issues continue to be of real concern right now for children of all ages as well as adults. So you have to give yourself permission to take care of yourself. This pandemic has presented us with a unique opportunity to problem solve with our kids and loosen the reins on micromanaging. If you can think back to pre-COVID, you may have been like many parents, running around trying to get your kids to all their different activities and get homework done and a million other things. You may have felt like you had to micromanage it all in order to keep everyone on schedule and to keep things from falling through the cracks. In your efforts to keep it all together and make sure that your child succeeds, you may inadvertently be eroding your child's confidence and growth in independence and executive function. Being stuck at home gives you the opportunity to problem solve together with your kids. Dialogue about whatever the challenge is. Maybe it's managing to get all of your kids onto their online classes with limited space or devices. Maybe your child interrupts you constantly while you're working. Whatever it is, identify and label the challenge. Get your child's take on the problem and listen to their needs. And then share your perspective and needs as well, but no judgments about what your child shared. Then strategize together with your kids. Brainstorm all the possible solutions to the problem. Have fun with it. And then together, decide on which is going to be the best solution, and everyone commit to trying it. Revisit it after a given amount of time, maybe the end of the day, maybe the end of the week, and evaluate to see how it worked. And celebrate everything that worked, modify what didn't work, and then go at it again. This problem-solving strategy takes some time, and it should definitely be done at a neutral, non-emotional time, not a time when you or your child are exhausted, but it's well worth it. Being a part of the process helps your kids, especially your teens, to feel some ownership and control, and it builds executive function and problem-solving skills. These kinds of skills aren't generally taught, but this is a great piece of education for your children, if you're a teacher, for your students. As problems come up, work to find and implement solutions together. It takes the burden off of your shoulders. And for those of you who are concerned about executive function, this is exactly what executive function does. It identifies problems, considers, eliminates, and selects solutions, and then evaluates outcomes and modifies accordingly. This is an incredible life skill worth spending time on with your kids. Consistent routines and expectations with our kids will reduce anxiety and stress. Everyone does better with predictability and routine. There is greater compliance if everyone knows exactly what to expect. And those initial shifts that create a new habit are kind of like knocking over the first domino. They tend to start a chain reaction that helps other good habits take hold. Studies have documented that families who habitually eat dinner together seem to raise children with better homework skills and higher grades and greater emotional control and more confidence. Making your bed every morning is correlated with higher productivity. Of course, it's not the dinner or the bed making, but the chain reactions started by those habits. So in this time of working at home and distance learning, structure and routine is really critical. We're getting towards the end of the school year, and if things are working well for you, then you've probably already got some solid routines in place. But if not, here are some suggestions. Have a weekday routine. Try to make each weekday as much like a regular school day as possible. Have a morning routine. Maybe you put some upbeat music on in the house, like Pharrell's song Happy, to get everyone going in the morning. Maybe you have a little morning exercise routine or morning chores. Kids should get dressed for school. Have some parameters around that. No PJs, no sweats for school. It's really helpful to have a visual schedule that is large and that everyone can see, that shows the morning routine, the school routine, breaks, chores, and fun stuff after, including some unstructured playtime without screens. Everybody sleeps, so we don't always stop to consider just how important it is to mental and physical health and academic and social success. Sleep is a complex function that affects almost every type of tissue and system in the body, including the brain, the heart, the lungs, metabolism, mood, and the immune system. Sleep is a time when a lot of learning that happens during the day gets processed and set into memory. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that children ages 6 through 12 get at least 9 hours of sleep. Teens need 8 to 10 hours, and adults need 7 to 9 hours. Here are some things that you can do to help yourself and your family get the sleep you need. Create a bedtime routine, starting with cutting off screen time an hour before bedtime. The blue light produced by devices reduces melatonin production, which is the natural chemical that causes us to feel sleepy. In addition, screen time right before bed kind of stimulates the brain and signals the body to wake up when we really should be winding down. Try to have a set schedule. Go to bed, wake up at the same time each day. Avoid caffeine and exercise within a few hours of bedtime because those are also stimulating. And keep the temperature below 70 degrees. The body heating up can cause wakefulness. Start an exercise routine. Research shows that physical movement can enhance clarity, attention, and readiness for learning. Physical movement increases oxygen flow to the brain, so that improves alertness and concentration and receptivity. Adding movement or physical action to any learning activity increases recall. I remember when my daughter was in college, she would study for tests on the elliptical at the gym and found that when she did that, she learned the information more quickly and retained it better. Educate your kids about these routines. They do better when they know why we want them to do something. And one of the positive outcomes of this time may be that students have learned some really important life habits. So let's talk a little bit about monitoring school and building independence. If you haven't already done this, or if the current space that your child is working in isn't really working, together with your child, determine a specific workspace where you can see or hear them, but not be right next to them. Dialogue about what they need in that space. Determine the best place for everything. The goal is that your child is going to have everything they need regularly right at their fingertips, and then everything else in a convenient place where they know where to find it every time. Students should work sitting up and not on their bed. It's really important that their sleeping space be different from their school and workspace. If your kids are not able to manage online classes and their schoolwork independently, determine together what they need. Kids get a lot of monitoring and direction in a physical classroom. So we can't assume that they're going to automatically know how to be independent and work well without that structure. If your kids are still really dependent on you, think about one thing at a time that you could adjust, that they could do that might help them be more independent, and just really dialogue it and practice it together. For example, if you always have to get your child on Zoom or Google Classroom, practice it, talk them through it, and then have them talk their way through it with you monitoring until it's automatic for them. Hey, I've seen a 1.5-year-old pick up an iPad, find the YouTube app, and start a Peppa Pig video. So your school-age child can probably learn how to get onto their classes with some practice. I've heard from students that they feel overwhelmed by getting so much work at one time. It's not even that they can't manage the individual tasks. It's that they get stuck because they don't know how to organize everything. If this is something that your child is dealing with, help them develop a system for separating and attacking one assignment at a time, small bites. Whatever system you devise, it needs to be simple, and they need to practice it and verbalize it as they're doing it. It's helpful with any new habits that you have them role play or visualize it and talk their way through exactly what they will do until it becomes comfortable. Have your child pick out a notebook that will be their special place to write down questions or things they need help on when they're working independently. If writing is a challenge for your child, get some of those little Post-it note tabs so that they can just tab the trouble spots. The purpose here is that you will have some uninterrupted time and that your child will work independently, but they'll have a way to note or mark where they need help later. Sometimes kids get stuck when they don't understand something, or there's a problem that they just can't do. They get stuck and they just can't move on. So giving them a way to note that spot and know that you're going to come back to it can allow them to feel okay about moving on. Now, you want to have a specific check-in time or a few check-in times where you can troubleshoot the things that they have questions on and validate them for following the structure. I would put those check-ins right on your visual schedule so that they know exactly when they can expect to connect with you. If you have a child who struggles with independent work, have him tell you exactly what he has to do, and then set a timer for a reasonable amount of time for your child. He should do everything he can during that time and skip anything that he's really stuck on. When the timer goes off, check in on him. Talk through the pieces he didn't understand and set him up for the next piece. And really validate him for the time he spent independently. You may have to start really small, maybe just 10 or 15 minutes, and gradually increase the amount of time that he's working on his own. I know it sounds simpler than it is when students don't really have the skills to do the job, but kids can surprise us too. It's easy to get into a habit of helping our struggling students with every single little thing. And distance learning is a good stimulus to break the pattern and get kids doing whatever pieces they can on their own and feeling empowered by that. For some students, planning and organizing projects or even organizing themselves in order to get started on school tasks can be overwhelming. When we feel overwhelmed, we have a tendency to just get stuck, sort of deer in the headlights. We just can't get started to tackle it. We have found that using flow charts with our students with challenges with attention or overwhelm have been really good at taking the pressure off of them and allowing them to be successful and independent. So a flow chart is just a visual representation of what we need to do step by step. So notice on this flow chart, we used ovals for start and stop. You use rectangles for each little step connected with arrows. And then you use a diamond for any time that you get to a place where you have to make a decision or you have to ask a question. So what you want to do on a flow chart is you want to put every single little step, and this is a really simple one. It's making a piece of toast, but you'll see every step is there. Put the toaster on the table, plug it in, turn it on, set to the desired degree, place the bread in the toaster. And all you have to do then is follow each step, follow the arrows. And eventually you get to a diamond, which is a decision point. Is the bread brown enough? Well, if it is, keep going. If it isn't, you follow that arrow back down to where it says press the lever down. This is a flow chart for organizing and completing schoolwork in a remote schooling world. You can see that this one is a little more complex, but it works exactly the same way. Now remember, you're not creating this for your child. You're creating it together. So together, visualize and think through every single step involved in the task or the sequence you're working on. If you need an hour of uninterrupted time to attend a meeting, exactly what is your child going to do during that time? Together, think about every step. This way, your child has a guide while you're not available. And it's really empowering to them to be able to follow this and know exactly what to do and get to check off all those steps. I remember a boy named Justin. He was 13 when he came to us. He was very dyslexic. And so because he couldn't read or write very well, he couldn't do his work. So we worked with him to correct the dyslexia, and then found he still wasn't doing his work because he couldn't organize himself to get it all done. So we created a flow chart together with him with every single step that he needed to do. And within 2 weeks, he was independent with completing his homework for all of his classes. And he felt so successful as he got to check off each step. Recognize the limits of your child's ability to concentrate before becoming unproductive. Take a brain break to re-energize thinking and focus. Bounce on an exercise ball, stand up and, take a good stretch. Wrestle with the dog for a minute. Schools really vary, but some students are being required to be in online class longer than they have the capacity to focus. It is far more stressful visually and to the attention and emotional system to focus on screen all day long than to be in a classroom. So if your child needs a break in order to be productive, you may need to let the teacher know that you're going to turn your child's camera off for a minute periodically to give them a needed movement break. I would encourage you to build quick brain breaks in for yourself and your students if you're a teacher. Set the groundwork of doing some kind of movement for a minute, no screens, to re-energize and refocus. Cross crawls is a really good brain break when kids are getting frustrated or starting to make a lot of mistakes. This is an integrating movement that activates both hemispheres of the brain. It's actually a really good way for your child to start the day. It's great for getting ready for the next class or assignment, for transitions, and it's good for all ages. Notice these boys are crossing from their elbow to their opposite knee. So they're really crossing across that midline of their body. Take a real break for yourself at least once a day when your child is engaged. Build it into your schedule and do something for you. Sit in the garden, do some yoga, read a book, take a walk, actually take a lunch break. If you feel like you don't have time, start small. Start with just 5 or 10 minutes. Remember, tiny habits build bigger habits. And even though we have a million things to do, taking a break allows us to be more productive. Educate your kids why they don't get to interrupt you during your break. Kids want to be useful. They want to help us. So get them on board and make it a habit. Even if it's short, it will be like a little refuge for you. Stress is not a bad thing. We need a certain amount of stress to get us moving and motivated, but too much stress can have a very negative impact on our mental, emotional, and physical health. In the neuroscience world, stress is defined as a continuum called levels of arousal. The top, the very highest level of arousal, is where we feel the most stressed, almost like freeze mode. I can't think. I can't do anything. I can't take a test. I don't understand what you're saying to me. The bottom level of it, the lowest level of stress, well, that's not really good either, because then it's like you're asleep. You're just kind of zonked. So maybe you've worked all day, you've done distance learning with your kids, and then you have to take a night class yourself, and you can't even pay attention. What we want is to be in that sweet spot called the zone, the optimal amount of stress and the optimal place to pay attention. I want to give you some tools for reducing stress. All of these things are good for you. They're good for your kids. And if you're a teacher, they're good to teach your students as well. Pandemic or not, we will all benefit from healthy ways to manage stress. I've spoken with a number of teachers who are very concerned about their students' mental health right now. So I really do encourage you to spend some time teaching your own kids and your students these techniques. Intentionally engaging in problem solving and practicing stress control techniques is a really valuable use of time that will allow students to be more present and more productive. The year 2020 brought a whole new take on online learning. Students went from doing some research online or perhaps taking 1 or 2 online classes to spending hours and hours every day doing distance learning on their devices. Adults and children began to experience extreme screen fatigue. Learning in an online environment requires a different kind of focus than learning in a 3-dimensional classroom. In the classroom, there's the opportunity for the eyes to move and vary the focal distance and use their peripheral vision as well as their central vision. Watching a screen for long periods of time places a stressful demand on the fine motor muscles around the eyes to stay tightly focused. And this focal vision activates our sympathetic nervous system, which stimulates the body's fight or flight response, making you agitated and feel like you want to move. Since distance learning is likely here to stay, at least in some form, even after the necessity for it declines, here are 3 simple ways to de-stress your system and reduce screen fatigue. So the first one is called 20-20-20. Every 20 minutes, look 20 feet away for 20 seconds. This gives your eye muscles a chance to relax briefly every 20 minutes, which reduces stress and increases capacity for mental focus. So every 20 minutes, 20 feet away for 20 seconds. The next one is peripheral vision. Look up from your screen and consciously notice what's in your peripheral vision. Do that right now. Just notice what is out to the side of you. You will feel an immediate settling and reduction in stress. Our eyes provide us with one of the very few ways that we can consciously access and regulate our autonomic nervous system. And the third one is step outside. Looking into the open immediately downregulates the nervous system. The targeted vision needed to focus on a screen increases arousal or stress. Neuroscience studies at Stanford University indicate that when you step outside and you look at the horizon or a wide view, you're never looking at one thing for very long, which reduces the stress on your system. By keeping your head still, you can expand your gaze to see far above, below, and to the sides of you. And that panoramic vision activates the brainstem to reduce the vigilance and reduce the arousal of that fight or flight stress response. So these 3 visual hacks, and I probably shouldn't even call them visual hacks because this is really how our brain and body work. But these visual tools allow us to immediately reduce stress by changing the way we're viewing our environment. They're simple, they're quick, and they're free. Because of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire and develop new connections and pathways, the more we practice these simple techniques, the more quickly and easily we can access a calmer, more focused state. Breathing is another way to use your own natural physiology to control stress. In fact, it's one of the most studied ways that we have to access our autonomic nervous system and our stress response. Take a deep breath through your nose and a long exhale through your mouth. Breathing out through the mouth provides a release, and that longer exhale signals our nervous system to settle down. So you go from high arousal back down to a calmer, more natural, rational zone. And you can do that with your breath. So let's do that. We'll do a couple of those together. So take a deep breath in through your nose and a longer exhale through your mouth. Let's do another one. And so that simple tool of a longer exhale through the mouth provides a release and changes our stress response. I just think that's really cool. People are feeling stressed and anxious right now, and that often causes us to worry about the future. Will it be safe for me or my child to go back to school? What will happen if the schools open or if they don't open this year? What if they have to close again? When you're feeling stressed, consciously think about your five senses. What do I see, smell, hear, taste, and feel? It brings you back to the present, which is a safer space. Here's a fun one for you. Smile. Just 5 minutes. Oh, not that. Just 5 seconds of pulling your mouth back into a smile releases endorphins and feel-good chemicals in the brain. So 5 seconds of pulling your mouth back into a smile. Even better, laugh. Watch a funny video with your child or play a silly game. Laughter also releases endorphins or happy chemicals into the bloodstream. It supports your immune system. And this is really cool. The vibrations from laughter shake the stress out of our organs, and it changes our mental state. Here are a few more ways to control stress. Fast from screens. This one is a little bit tough, but social media, the news, Netflix, Amazon, they're all designed to access our stress response. The more stressed we are, the longer we'll pay attention to what's in front of us. If you want to lower your arousal level, fast a little bit every day from the media, maybe 30 minutes a day. Just before you go to bed is the most suggestive time in the brain. So be careful what you put in your brain before you go to bed. When we're trying to help students at the Learning Center develop executive function skills and new habits, we often encourage them to visualize and mentally talk through a new habit or strategy before they go to bed. While they're asleep, the brain will continue to process that information and help set it into memory. Knowing that, we can use this time as a tool, or we can inadvertently agitate our brain all night long. You may have experienced this if you've watched the news or something disturbing or aggressive just before you went to bed, and then you wake up the next morning feeling really out of sorts. Exercise, moving forward towards something, causes our eyes to go back and forth, which stimulates the brain to feel good, and it lowers the arousal and stress level. Reconnect with your spiritual life. Hope, emotional resilience, and feel-good emotions are restored when people connect back to spirituality. These things are not just fads. This is really how our brains work. And with the neuroplasticity in the brain, if we teach ourselves what it feels like to be calmer, our brain starts to learn and hold on to that. We live in such an amazing time where we know so much about how the brain works and how to optimize performance. I hope you've gotten some helpful tools for controlling stress and for managing work, supporting your child's distance learning, and staying sane at the end of the day.
Thank you, Jill. This was so relevant and useful to parents right now, really struggling with their kids at home. And, you know, especially you talked about self-care at the beginning. That is just giving parents permission to think about ourselves and to take care of ourselves. I know I have not. I've really been struggling with this myself as a parent because, yeah, we were all about our kids and are the kids okay? So thank you so much for that. And personally, I use that breathing technique all the time throughout the day. So I love that. I can instantly feel a difference. So thank you. So relevant right now. We have some parents checking in. We have Susan saying hello, and Andrea, great tips. And just saying it was really helpful, very helpful. Andrea, when you were, Jill, when you were talking about establishing a routine and helping kids to, you know when they needed to be doing something independent so that parents could also work, that's where Andrea kind of chimed in. We struggle with this so much. My son is only 4, and when I answer the phone or sit down with my husband and try to have a conversation, that's when my son decides to be loud and rough with his toys. So she's really struggling with him at home, trying to establish a routine where she can be away from him. Any suggestions for that?
You know, you might just take that one particular thing. You can't take a lot of things at one time. It's just got to be really specific. So maybe you kind of, do it like a game, but it's going to be the phone game. When mommy's on the phone, what does the little guy get to do? And so then you just set it up. When mommy gets on the phone, here's what you get to do, and just have that available. So that thing that he likes to play with, or maybe you get a little toy phone or something, and he gets to play on, talk on his toy phone. But you have to practice. And when mommy's on the phone, shh, it's quiet time. And then just practice it. And when he, gets an approximation of it, then, you clap and you high five or validate that, but just do it as a play activity and practice it over and over and over, different times of the day. What happens when mommy's on the phone? Oh, shh. And then get his toy or whatever. I mean, it takes a lot of repetition, and it's got to feel fun. At 4 years old, it's got to feel fun.
Absolutely. And I'll chime in. I have a 5-year-old myself. And although she is neurotypical, she loves attention. Like, she wants my attention. And at the beginning of this pandemic was really hard. I'm on Zoom calls all day long. I'm doing this show. And fortunately, we haven't had, maybe unfortunately, she likes to be in my shot. So when I was really absorbed in all these meetings, you would see her little head poking, and I really had to work with her on mommy's on a meeting on the computer. She'd want to say hi. I've done a couple of shows here from my home where she's been at home. And I've eventually been able to do that, and get her to be independent and know that that kind of was sacred time. The thing that she craves the most from me is my intense attention. And so we set it up a routine where, you know, just at first was like 3 minutes where I'm looking at the computer, I'm on the computer, and she is doing something quietly. And then we extended that time. And then immediately after, she and I play together where I'm really involved with her. I'm not distracted. I'm not on my phone or on my computer or anything else. And she gets that intense attention from me because she really does crave that.
And I think that's really critical.
Yeah.
Knowing what it is she needs and then giving it to her immediately. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because they don't have the attention span. They don't have, you know, they can't always think about future events. And so, you know, it does need to be immediate, you know, telling, oh, you're going to get a toy later or a prize later. For us, that wasn't successful at first when she was 4. Now that she's 5, it's getting a little bit easier. So hang in there, mama. Laura is commenting, you know, everyone needs this class, this webinar. So it will be on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. If you know anyone that could benefit, please share. So it'll be housed there. If you didn't catch this live, you can always go see any of our former episodes on our YouTube channel or on our Facebook page. I also have a mom from Mom Squad checking in. She didn't want to post her name, but just because her son is dealing with a lot of anxiety, and she's asking for advice for that. She has an 11-year-old boy. They are going back to school in person. The district gave them a choice, and she decided it would be best for him. He's just really suffered emotionally throughout the pandemic. And so she decided he needs to be back in person. He doesn't want to go back in person. He has a lot of anxiety. He's doing a lot of perseverating, it sounds like, and just asking a lot of what ifs and what ifs. And so she's asking for advice for how to help her child with anxiety. Any advice there?
You know, I think what's really important is to try to figure out, and he's kind of telling you with the what ifs, what is the source of that anxiety for him? You know, going back to school, we really are going to have to prepare our kids for that. It's going to be different than it was. You know, kids are going to be distanced. They may be wearing masks. There may be plexiglass. There may be rules about the playground that are different, about the restrooms that are different. And so you just really want to find out as much as you can about exactly what those rules are and what it's going to be like. And then just, you know, talk it through, walk it through, kind of role play it. You know, so in general, we really do need to be preparing our kids. In terms of his anxiety, you know, the key thing is trying to figure out what the root of that is. And so I know one of our previous guests talked about playing the would you rather game. Would you rather be on the screen all day or be in school? Why? Neither one is right or wrong, but it gives them an opportunity, you know, to say, and you might even be able to, you know, oh, really? I would rather do this because. So you're just sharing, but it's opening up a conversation. And certainly with the what ifs that your son is bringing up, listen to what that fear is and maybe dialogue it. What if the friends that you had before don't like you, or whatever the issue is? What if? Well, you know, you have to kind of, what's the worst thing? What's the best thing? Could I make new friends? Could I help them feel better? Maybe they're scared. Just, you know, but just dialoguing it together to try to listen to where that is coming from. Because it's a real fear that I think a lot of kids have. This is very different. It's been a whole year.
Right. Absolutely. And they're kind of in their routine, even though it might not be a healthy routine, to be so isolated. It is a transition. We have Lizzie commenting, thank you for sharing knowledge. I have a 7-year-old. We struggle with independence with homework. I have to sit next to her, especially when there are different sections in math or writing journal entries. Flowchart ideas is great. Can't wait to give it a try. And this is a good segue. I posted, so if you are in Mom Squad, I've posted in the guides the sample flowchart that Jill was showing in her slides, and also a link to the app. It's called, I think, Lucid Charts, and you can get a free account to use that flowchart, and it can be as simple or as complex as you want, but it's a really great visual that we use in our centers with students. So you can get that in Mom Squad. And speaking of Mom Squad, I'll just kind of segue into that. If you haven't joined, that is our private Facebook group that you can request to join. You can find it on our Facebook page, or by searching Facebook groups, search the keyword SLC Mom Squad. There's a few different Mom Squads. So make sure you find the right one with our logo, and you can request to join. Again, I've posted several resources in that group. It's a private Facebook group, so you have access to all that content. I've also posted some short video clips of presentations that Jill's done in the past. There is a video on cross crawl, so you can see how to do that and implement that with your kiddos. It is a great brain break that we do with our students, even in center. So check all that out. I have a guide on dyslexia resources, executive function resources, let's see, retained reflexes, and auditory processing are our guides so far. So some resources there for you in Mom Squad. And in April, so we will be having our April Peace meeting. Peace is our parent support group. Our April topic is on attention to memory. That meeting is on Thursday, April 15th at 5 p.m. Pacific. You do need to register at stowellcenter.com/peace to join and get the registration link. It is a Zoom meeting because I love to hear from parents and see your faces, or at least your boxes in Zoom, and just really collaborate and share. Again, we do share resources, and if there's anything you're wanting from us that I can share with you that we have 37 years of resources that we can share. That's the time to ask. So our topic on attention to memory, really relevant right now. Did you know that there's 4 different types of attention? Did you know that there's 3 different types of memory? We're going to really get into that in our discussion and give you some tips for working with your kiddos at home in our Peace meeting. So thank you to everyone who participated. Thank you, Jill, for taking the time to share with parents. This is so relevant, and parents really need that support right now. We need to take care of each other. So thank you so much, Jill, for sharing your wisdom.
Well, thank you, Lauren. This is LD Expert Live, your place for answers and solutions for learning disabilities, dyslexia, and attention challenges. We're live every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Next Tuesday, we'll be talking about the power of listening in resolving dyslexia and learning challenges with international expert and pioneer in the field of listening and auditory training, 𝗏𝗏. This is a real treat. I'm so excited to have him. So be sure to join us next Tuesday at 10. Stowell Learning Centers are open for remote sessions and screenings. We're also seeing students on site with all of the COVID precautions. We work with children and adults doing targeted brain training to permanently resolve difficulties with dyslexia, auditory processing, learning, and attention challenges. As you begin planning for summer, remember that summer intensive programs are a great way to make up for lost instruction and close up those academic gaps. If you would like a free consultation for yourself or your child, give us a call or visit our website at stowellcenter.com. Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and share this show with other parents who you think would benefit. We'll see you next week.